Silent Hill is a truly special series for me. The original trilogy and Shattered Memories are a masterpiece in my eyes. They have great puzzles, great stories, challenging combat, and amazing atmosphere. I really love these games. 3 will always be my favorite one, but 2 I absolutely love as well. Silent Hill 2 was truly special how it handled its story, giving you clues along the way that doesn't make sense at the moment, but in the end, it all makes sense. It's a story I will never forget, alongside some incredible atmosphere and music. Silent Hill 2 is one of the most legendary horror games ever created, so when the rumor of a remake started appearing, I was cautiously optimistic. I think the idea of a remake of this game could be great to introduce a new audience to this amazing game, but with a fresh coat of paint. But then we started hearing that it was confirmed that the remake was coming, and it was developed by Bloober, and everyone's expectation just plummeted. For those who don't know, Bloober is known for making horror games that's very subpar. I personally only played Layers of Fear and it was okay. It had nice graphics to it and a decent story, but the game was not scary at all, especially since you can't die in it at all. And all the other games have just received mixed to negative reviews, so yeah, not a great track record. But finally, after a long while, we got our first trailer at the remake, and I thought it looked pretty solid, but several people were not happy with it, thinking it looked underwhelming. To say the least, a lot of people were not sold on it. But something happened. When they showed the second trailer, suddenly everyone was on board, and I think it's for one good reason. It was a good trailer. Shocking, I know. The game looked great and everything seemed to have been translated so well in the modern look. Even several criticisms from the original trailer was actually fixed to please the fans. They actually took the feedback and actually fixed it. That was pretty cool. They also got the legendary composer Akira Yamaoka back to redo the soundtrack, which was pretty awesome. So yeah, the game looked great. It looked super promising. Now the question was, will it deliver or not? And after having finished it, I can safely say, buddy, they fucking delivered.
Someone cooked here.
I'm not even joking when I say this has to be one of the best remakes I've ever seen of any game. So without further ado, let's get into it. The game opens up with our main character James Sunderland looking into a mirror at a random public toilet. Right after, he's outside and looks out at the foggy forest at the town of Silent Hill, not being too far from there. James is heading towards the town in order to find his supposed dead wife that recently sent him a letter telling him to come to find her in their special place. On this journey, James will also find some side characters that come to the town too, for their own reasons, and monsters out to kill him. That's as basic as I can sum the story up. I will talk more about some scenes later in the video, but for now, let's get into the visuals cause it looks fantastic. The game has such a great look to it. The characters look great and there's so much detail in them. Like, look at James. You can count all his beard stubs. It's amazing. And the enemies too, they look so good in this game. Just look at Pyramid Head, he has never looked more sexy before. Every character has been translated so well into the remake. Not only does the characters look great, but the environments looks amazing. From the foggy but empty downtown of Silent Hill to the grimy and greasy look of the other side. Like, there were many times I just stopped to look at something just because it has such nice detail or it just looked really cool. All this brown rust and green mold looks so disgustingly fantastic, but the best part of the new look is the lighting. It's done incredibly well. It just looks so mesmerizing at times. Like during the final level, being in this rundown hotel, just seeing the light come out of the window, it looks stunning, it looks amazing. The graphics are overall amazing and the same are the performances. I think everyone in the game did a great job. Instead of trying to capture more stilted but kind of creepy performances from the original, they went with their own direction, which I think worked much better. But dude, mad props to Luke Roberts playing James Sunderland. This man absolutely killed it. The way he stutters at his words or talks awkwardly, it's so good.
Okay. So he attacked you, and you shot him.
Where are you going?
I need to find Mary.
Didn't you say she died?
Oh,
He captured James Sunderland so well in his acting, and it's one of my favorite performances this year. Now all of this is fantastic, but how did they capture the combat? I mean, that is the thing I was most worried about when it comes to this remake. The original game, while it had tank controls, used it in the best possible way. You were limited in your movement, you were vulnerable, and the combat in general made you never feel like a superhuman, but that's what was so good about it. Unlike characters in Resident Evil like Claire Leon, James, he's just a normal guy. He has never had any prior training or fighting training at all, so the combat being like this works so well to his advantage. It also made encounters more scary. So, How do you compare to Remake? Well, it's obviously not tank controls, but instead over-the-shoulder third person. And I can safely say they did a great job modernizing the combat, while also keeping the roots of making James not a superhuman. James is still very vulnerable, especially when attacking, as enemies can manage to hit back and stop his attack. If you're fast enough, you could take down lesser enemies with a few strikes, but most of the time you have to be patient with your attacks, so you don't leave yourself open for other attacks. And hitting enemies in this game is so satisfying. They have such an oomph to them that makes attacking enemies feel so much more fun. If an enemy is knocked to the ground, they're either dead or just one hit away. Or you can do like me, hit the same enemy for about 50 times just to make sure they're dead. You also get some other weapons you use in the game, like a gun, shotgun and rifle. All great weapons, but during my playthrough, I kind of forgot to pick up the rifle, so I went this entire game without ever using it and just collected bullets for it, so oops. The gun feels pretty good to use, but the shotgun feels amazing. You do have a limited amount of ammo though, so you have to be careful with using it. I always try my best to save up the ammo for the bosses later on, and buddy, they are so much more improved from the original. The bosses in the original are just okay in my opinion. I think it's more of the story reason for the fights that makes them more cool to me. Fighting wise, they're fine. In the remake however, they're so much cooler. Like take the fight with the Pyramid Head, the way he moves around and just slams his massive weapon on the ground is amazing intense. The other bosses are also great, and especially the monsters. They really feel like you're going up against some godlike entity and you barely just survive. And again, just like Pyramid Head, how they will destroy parts of the environment, just showing how much they want you dead. These boss fights felt so much more intense, and I'm so happy to see them being as good as they are. The tracks playing during these fights are also just incredible. Akira Yamaoka is back, and not only did he redo the tracks for the bosses, but the soundtrack as a whole. The new soundtrack is great, and some of the remade tracks I actually prefer over the original. Tracks like Beneath the Full Moon, White Noise, Overdose Delusion and the theme of Laura Repetition are some example of tracks I find better in the remake. But there are also some tracks that you prefer in the original, like the old Laura theme, but that track is one of the best ever put into the game, so it will be really hard to top. But the new one is also pretty good. But dude, the new Betrayal track though, holy, this one is godlike. The original is my second favorite track in the game. It is so tense, sound like God is about to punish you. But I think they actually made it even better here. It sounds like something from a Christopher Nolan movie, and I just love it so much. There are also some pretty nice details they put in this game, like how when you walk around you hear James breathe and also make the noise to clear his throat from time to time. And James, when he stomps at enemies, he's so aggressive. I love it so much. So I mentioned earlier that they did some few changes on the scenes here and there. Biggest one being that the game doesn't really have any of those comedic scenes unlike the original. But the thing is, several of those scenes were kind of like unintentionally funny. So in Silent Hill 2, you meet a character called Eddie. At first he's just like this fat guy who seems very nervous and stuff, but then you learn that he is not super sane and actually becomes quite insane. And he wants to kill James because he thinks James is mocking him. In the original, when James kills Eddie, he walks up to Eddie's dead body and says, "Eddie? Eddie?" Like Eddie didn't just get blasted by multiple shotgun blasts. In the remake, however, after James has killed Eddie, he instead looks at his hands in shock and just says nothing. It's like he's thinking, oh god, I just killed a person. And it's so much more powerful. But they also took out the best scene from the original. They do not have the original pizza line anymore. I mean, they do have it, sort of, but it's not the same. In the new one you can find Eddie has eaten a pizza and he goes, who can eat the pizza when there are monsters around? And it's like, it's a cute nod, but it will never beat the original where James just yells at Eddie.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
But hey, I still think it's cool they still put this in the game somehow and still acknowledge it. In fact, they actually put a lot of references like this in the game. Like if you look at the bread here, James will say, it's bread. A reference I had amazing looking at the bread in 3. There's so many other great references too, but if I mention them, I will be here all day. The game does so much right, but it does have some issues, mainly the performance. Now the game does play at 60 FPS, but there were several times where the frame will drop to like 30 FPS. But to be honest, it did run at 60 FPS at like 80% of the game, but 20% of the times it would drop, and it was noticeable, but it's not really a huge deal. There are also multiple endings, with some of them being emotional and others being, well, just silly. There's a classic dog ending where James finds out the dog has been in control of the whole thing, but I really like the alien ending where Remake James finds the original James, where the original James takes the Remake James with him, and we get this amazing screenshot. The other endings are a lot more emotional and they're just fantastic in their own way, and they actually added a new one. But again, I won't spoil them here because I think you should actually watch them for yourself. So yeah, that's Silent Hill 2 remake, and if it was not obvious enough, I love this remake so much. Not only did Bloober really show respect to the original game, but also to its fans, and I'm so glad to see that. But here comes the big question. Do I think this is better than the original? Personally, I think both are fantastic. I think everyone should experience both versions. Both versions are fantastic in their own way, with their own unique look and feel to them. The remake is fantastic, but it does not replace the original. It is a fantastic way to experience the story, but so is the original. I've been Tom, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good night.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday. But you never did. Well, I'm alone there now. In our special place. Waiting for you.